Enemy in the open. Guns in effect.
I identify North Oscar.
So our attached call signs for this exercise is our medic, Corporal Tolman. Okay. Our flotilla commander.
Today, as we gather amid an ever-evolving security landscape, this 40th iteration of Balakatan reflects our ability to adapt and innovate.
For decades, the Taiwan question was viewed through a familiar triangle: Washington, Tokyo, and Taipei, the principal actors in any potential conflict across the Taiwan Strait. Yet, in the last few years, a quiet but profound geopolitical shift has redrawn that map. Today, the Philippines, once a peripheral player in East Asian security, has emerged as a central pillar in the region's evolving deterrence architecture, the silent fourth corner in the calculus of great power competition. The reasons for this shift are as strategic as they are geographic. No country sits closer to southern Taiwan than the Philippines. Its northernmost islands like Mabulus and Itbayat lie less than 150 kilometers from Taiwan's southern tip. This proximity transforms the Philippines from a bystander into a potential frontline state in any Taiwan contingency. Its archipelagic geography straddles both the South China Sea and the Luzon Strait, two of the most critical maritime corridors in the Indo-Pacific. In a crisis, these narrow channels would become lifelines for Allied logistics and choke points for Chinese naval movements, making Philippine territory indispensable to the defense of Taiwan and to the broader balance of power in Asia. But geography tells only part of the story. Under the leadership of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., Manila has undergone a strategic reawakening, restoring and expanding defense cooperation with the United States, Japan, and other like-minded partners.
To begin with, yung EDCA sites kasi natin, talaga siyang multi-purpose facilities. Mula nung itinayo yan, it's inside military bases.
The granting of expanded access to U.S. forces under the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, EDCA, the signing of new reciprocal defense pacts with Japan, and the renewed assertiveness in the West Philippine Sea have collectively repositioned the Philippines as a linchpin in the region's democratic coalition. Equally significant is the country's moral and political alignment. As the only U.S. treaty ally situated between the South China Sea and Taiwan, and as one of Asia's most vibrant democracies, the Philippines embodies the values and strategic access that make it indispensable to the global effort to preserve a free and open Indo-Pacific. In essence, the road to Taiwan and to regional stability now runs through Manila. In the emerging Indo-Pacific order, deterrence is no longer built on rigid lines of containment. It is being woven into a flexible defense web that encircles China without encasing it. The old Cold War model of military blocs has evolved into a modern network of interlocking partnerships, access agreements, and coordinated patrols, designed not for invasion, but for denial, the strategic ability to prevent unilateral control of the region's vital sea lanes and air corridors. Within this expanding web, the Philippines has quietly become the geographic hinge connecting two of the world's most volatile arenas, the South China Sea and the Taiwan Strait. From Luzon's northernmost islands, where Filipino troops gaze across barely 150 kilometers of ocean toward Taiwan, to the contested waters of the West Philippine Sea, where Chinese vessels test Manila's resolve almost daily. The Philippines occupies the critical midpoint between flashpoints. It is both the front line of maritime sovereignty and the back line of Allied logistics. the point where deterrence in the South China Sea meets defense planning for Taiwan. As one Western strategist aptly put it, if Taiwan is the spark, the Philippines is the platform. This positioning is not accidental. It is the outcome of a deliberate recalibration of strategy by both Manila and its partners. The United States, Japan, and Australia now see the Philippines as the southern anchor of the first island chain. A base of resilience and redundancy for regional operations. New joint patrols, air and naval exercises, and expanded access sites under the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, EDCA, have transformed once quiet military installations into nodes of an integrated deterrence architecture. What makes this geometry so powerful and potentially stabilizing is its distributed strength.
The Philippines doesn't need to mirror Taiwan's fortifications or Japan's defense budgets. Its value lies in location, connectivity, and legitimacy. A democratic ally at the intersection of two strategic theaters, it gives form and flexibility to the Indo-Pacific's deterrence network. The balance of power in Asia, once defined by static lines and treaties, now turns on a new axis, and at that axis sits the Philippines.
After years of uncertainty and strategic drift, the US-Philippines alliance has undergone a dramatic transformation, one that has turned it from a legacy of the Cold War into a linchpin of modern Indo-Pacific deterrence.
Through joint exercises, training, and subject matter expert exchanges, to increase their capabilities and interoperability, the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, or EDCA, serves as recognition by both sides that there is even more we can do together to support the alliance and to promote peace and security in the region.
At the heart of this revival is the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, EDCA, first signed in 2014, but only truly revitalized under the administration of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. EDCA has evolved from a symbolic framework into a strategic blueprint for integrating the Philippines into the U.S. military's distributed resilience strategy, a posture that disperses forces across the region to ensure survivability, flexibility, and rapid response in any conflict scenario. The transformation is most visible across northern Luzon, now emerging as the launchpad of Allied deterrence operations.
4 of the 9 EDCA sites, such as Lalo Airport in Cagayan and Naval Base Camilo Ocias in Santa Ana, sit within range of Taiwan. Placing U.S. logistics, surveillance, and rapid deployment capabilities on the very doorstep of the first island chain. At these sites, U.S. engineers and Philippine counterparts are building hardened facilities, fuel depots, and command centers, enabling faster interoperability between the two militaries. Far from being bases in the traditional sense, these are forward operating nodes designed for flexibility, allowing quick dispersal of forces, humanitarian missions, or defensive operations in a Taiwan or South China Sea contingency. This alliance renewal is also being tested and proven in real time. The tempo of joint military exercises has reached historic levels.
It is an honor to stand with you today as we launch Exercise Balikatan 2025. Today, as we gather amid an ever-evolving security landscape.
With activities like Balikatan 2025, the largest in the alliance's history, involving more than 20,000 troops and simulated live fire drills across Luzon and the Visayas.
New frameworks like Salaknib and Kamandag complement these efforts, creating an annual cycle of interoperability that blends traditional warfare training with maritime domain awareness, cyber operations, and logistics resilience.
For the Pentagon, the Philippines now represents more than an ally. It is a central pillar of its shift away from containment toward distributed deterrence. The logic is simple. In a conflict environment shaped by missiles, drones, and fast-paced escalation, survival depends on mobility and dispersion, not concentration. By leveraging the Philippines' archipelagic geography and democratic legitimacy, the U.S. gains not only access, but adaptability, an ability to respond from multiple points without triggering political backlash or overextension. Meanwhile, for Manila, this alliance is no longer one-sided.
It is mutual and modernized, a relationship that strengthens its defense posture, accelerates infrastructure development, and anchors it firmly within a network of allies who share both its security concerns and democratic ideals. The U.S.-Philippines Alliance 2.0 is not about returning to the past. It is about building the backbone of Asia's future security architecture. One island and one partnership at a time.
Enemy in the open. Guns in effect.
I authenticate. Go, Oscar.
If the United States anchors the northern flank of the Philippines' security network, Australia is fast becoming its southern pillar, a dependable partner whose presence cements the archipelago's role as the Indo-Pacific's connective defense hub. The two countries are now negotiating a landmark 2026 defense cooperation agreement, one that mirrors the strategic depth of EDCA and is poised to institutionalize long-term military access, training, and joint infrastructure development across Philippine territory.
This evolving partnership marks the next phase of Manila's defense modernization, shifting from bilateral aid to reciprocal strategic integration. Under this framework, Canberra has committed to fund 8 new defense-related infrastructure projects across the Philippines. Investments that echo the US-funded EDCA model, but are tailored to complement Australia's operational focus on maritime logistics, air mobility, and humanitarian response. These projects, expected to include airfield upgrades, radar installations, and logistics depots, will strengthen Manila's ability to project resilience across its southern maritime frontier. More importantly, they expand Allied basing diversity, giving regional forces strategic redundancy, the ability to sustain operations even if northern facilities come under threat during a Taiwan or South China Sea contingency.
What we done is within the legal framework of the exercise, and we have not done any wrong. We're doing exercise of freedom of navigation. There's nothing wrong with that, I think.
This growing military partnership has found its most visible symbol in Exercise Elan, the first ever joint amphibious and high-end warfighting exercise between the Armed Forces of the Philippines, AFP, and the Australian Defence Force, ADF. Held in Philippine waters, the drills have featured Royal Australian Air Force FA-18F Super Hornets, EA-18G Growler electronic warfare aircraft, and amphibious landing ships, alongside Philippine naval and air assets. Beyond the hardware and precision strikes, the exercise represents a new level of trust and interoperability, the capacity to plan, deploy, and fight together in complex maritime environments. It also underscores Australia's recognition that the Philippines is no longer just a training partner, but a forward partner in ensuring regional stability. Canberra's role has evolved rapidly from that of a supportive ally to a co-equal anchor in Manila's defense network.
And certainly normal for allies and partners to exercise within each other's territories to build that interoperability between our two countries.
Australian officials describe this collaboration as part of a shared maritime destiny, where both nations stand at the intersection of the South China Sea and the Pacific. a space increasingly defined by cooperation among like-minded democracies. With overlapping security interests, similar alliance commitments with Washington, and a shared view of the rules-based order, the Philippines and Australia are constructing a southward extension of deterrence, a safety net that complements Japan and the US in the north. These efforts signal a fundamental transformation in the Indo-Pacific's strategic map. The Philippines is no longer a peripheral ally, and Australia is no longer just a distant partner. They are now two halves of the same shield, guarding the region's southern approaches and ensuring that the sea lanes connecting the South China Sea to the Pacific remain free, secure, and open. The Japan-Philippines relationship has entered a new strategic era, a renaissance defined not by aid or development assistance, but by mutual defense and shared deterrence. The signing of the Reciprocal Access Agreement, RAA, between Tokyo and Manila marks one of the most consequential defense pacts in modern Asian security history. For the first time, it legally allows Japanese Self-Defense Forces, JSDF, to deploy and train on Philippine soil, paving the way for joint military exercises, humanitarian missions, and rapid response operations in times of regional crisis. What was once a partnership built around Coast Guard training and vessel donations has evolved into a security alliance grounded in interoperability and trust.
This shift is both symbolic and practical. For years, Japan's role in Philippine defense was limited to providing hardware, patrol boats, radar systems, and surveillance equipment under the banner of maritime capacity building. Today, the cooperation runs deeper. Japanese and Filipino troops train side by side, conducting amphibious drills, humanitarian disaster response simulations, and joint air-sea patrols. The RAA transforms these interactions from ad hoc coordination into a structured defense relationship, one that embeds Japan into the operational fabric of the Philippine military. It's a visible acknowledgement that both nations' security is intertwined. What happens in the Bashi Channel or South China Sea directly shapes the stability of the Taiwan Strait and Japan's southern defense line. Both governments frame this partnership as part of a larger mission to uphold the rules-based international order. For Tokyo, which has steadily reinterpreted its pacifist constitution to meet the demands of a shifting security environment, the Philippines represents a strategic extension of its defensive perimeter. Manila's location provides a geographic bridge linking Japan's Ryukyu Islands chain to the South China Sea, a critical arc in the first island chain that forms the backbone of regional deterrence. By supporting the Philippines' maritime security, Japan effectively defends its own access to sea lanes and supply routes, which are vital for its trade-dependent economy. Yet beneath the diplomatic language lies a strategic calculus. Tokyo increasingly sees the Philippines not merely as a partner, but as a frontline buffer, a friendly, sovereign state positioned between Japan and China's expanding military footprint. This framing reflects Japan's recognition that Manila's defense is now inseparable from Japan's own security, and that stability in the Philippines is essential to preventing the wider Indo-Pacific from tipping into crisis. In this light, the Japan-Philippines strategic renaissance is about more than two nations deepening military ties. Beyond the United States, Japan, and Australia, a new constellation of Western partners is rapidly coalescing around the Philippines, transforming Manila from a regional player into a global connective node in the emerging security web of the Indo-Pacific. What began as a cautious effort to diversify defense partnerships has evolved into a broad, multinational embrace,
what analysts have begun to describe as the NATOization of the Pacific Rim.
Those partnerships that we have formed and that we have, the agreements that we have made bilaterally and on a multilateral basis as well.
At the heart of this expansion are ongoing negotiations for visiting forces agreements, VFAs, with Canada and New Zealand. Two of the Philippines' oldest diplomatic partners, but until recently, limited defense collaborators. These agreements, expected to be finalized by 2026, will legally enable Canadian and New Zealand defense forces to train, pre-position assets, and conduct joint operations on Philippine soil. For Ottawa, this move reinforces its Indo-Pacific strategy, which explicitly names the Philippines as a key partner in defending open sea lanes and countering gray zone coercion. For Wellington, it represents a significant pivot from its traditionally low military profile toward a proactive security role in regional stability, recognizing that geography can no longer insulate the Pacific from continental crises. Europe, too, is stepping decisively into the Philippine orbit. France, the United Kingdom, and Italy have entered structured defense dialogues with Manila, covering maritime security, defense industrial cooperation, and training exchanges. France, leveraging its Indo-Pacific territories and naval presence, has floated proposals for joint patrols and base access agreements in Philippine waters. Meanwhile, the UK's Carrier Strike Group has incorporated the Philippines into its regional engagement plans, viewing Manila as a potential logistics and maintenance hub. Even Italy, historically focused on Mediterranean affairs, has signed cooperation frameworks on defense technology and naval asset sharing, signaling Europe's expanding strategic horizon towards Southeast Asia. Further east in Europe, Germany, Lithuania, and even war-tested Ukraine are also linking up with Manila through Memoranda of Understanding, MOUs, and defense technology partnerships. Germany's Federal Ministry of Defense has opened talks on joint naval training and potential arms production collaboration, while Lithuania, one of Europe's most vocal critics of Beijing's coercive diplomacy, has provided cybersecurity assistance and intelligence sharing support. Ukraine, for its part, has offered cooperation on drone technology and battlefield medicine, reflecting a solidarity born from parallel struggles against larger aggressors. What ties all these initiatives together is a pattern of convergence. Western democracies aligning their Indo-Pacific strategies through the Philippines. Each partnership, whether through access agreements, joint drills, or tech sharing, contributes to the creation of a multi-layered defense ecosystem centered on Manila. This isn't formal alliance expansion. It's the functional integration of like-minded states to ensure freedom of navigation, supply chain security, and deterrence credibility. The implications are profound. The Philippines, once viewed as a secondary theater of great power rivalry, is now the strategic hinge linking the Atlantic and the Pacific democracies. It has become the connector state through which Europe projects influence eastward, and through which North America anchors its Indo-Pacific commitments southward. In short, the Philippines is no longer standing on the periphery of global defense architecture. It is standing at its crossroads. In this emerging security order, the message is clear. Manila has become the meeting point of two worlds, the maritime democracies of the West and the island coalitions of the Indo-Pacific. The result is a networked deterrence structure, built not on confrontation, but on shared purpose. And at its center stands the Philippines, a nation whose strategic geography and political will have finally aligned with history's moment. In the quiet calculus of Indo-Pacific defense planning, the Philippines has emerged as the perfect instrument of indirect deterrence, a nation that offers strategic access without crossing the threshold of provocation. For allies like the United States, Japan, and Australia, Manila provides what strategists call strategic ambiguity with operational utility. In simple terms, the Philippines offers a platform that signals preparedness without inviting immediate escalation. Unlike Taiwan, whose defense commitments are explicit and politically explosive, or Japan, whose rearmament is closely watched by Beijing. The Philippines occupies a middle ground, geographically crucial, politically moderate, and legally anchored. By expanding access through the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, EDCA, and new bilateral pacts, Allied forces gain forward basing, pre-positioning rights, and logistics corridors. All within the framework of international law and Philippine sovereignty. This makes the Philippines a deterrent by proximity, allowing allies to quietly reinforce the perimeter around China without openly militarizing the Taiwan Strait. The genius of this approach lies in credibility without confrontation. The goal is not to fight from the Philippines, but to make it unmistakably clear to Beijing that any act of aggression against Taiwan or in the South China Sea will be met by swift, coordinated response options launched from a network of nearby positions, including those in Luzon, Palawan, and the Visayas. The Philippines thus becomes a tripwire and a warning, not a battlefield. Its geography amplifies deterrence while its diplomacy keeps escalation in check. In this way, Manila becomes the pressure valve of the Indo-Pacific, balancing between proximity to conflict and commitment to peace. Ironically, China's assertive behavior has forged the very coalition it feared most. Its militarization of the South China Sea, economic coercion, and intimidation tactics around Taiwan have driven once ambivalent nations into each other's arms, and all routes of resistance now pass through Manila.
China Coast Guard Vessel 21612. This is Philippine Coast Guard Vessel EDCA, MRRB4409. You are advised that you are currently sailing within the Philippine Exclusive Economic Zone.
Each new deployment in the South China Sea, every Coast Guard harassment at 2nd Thomas Shoal, and every show of force around Taiwan now loops back through Philippine territory, politically or operationally. The result is a reversal of strategic gravity. The Philippines has become the balancing weight of the Indo-Pacific, a small archipelagic nation whose geography commands outsized influence over great power movements. It is no longer a bystander in regional security. It is the fulcrum on which deterrence now rests. The transformation is profound. Beijing sought to rewrite the regional order. Instead, it redrew the map, with Manila at the center. History, it seems, has a sense of irony. During the Cold War, the Philippines hosted some of the largest American bases in Asia, only to later retreat into a policy of neutrality and restraint. Now, decades later, as the tides of great power rivalry return, the archipelago once dismissed as a weak link is once again the pivot of strategy. But this time, it stands not as a passive host, but as an active architect of its own defense destiny. The Philippines' resurgence as the Indo-Pacific's strategic crossroads is not accidental. It is the culmination of geography, diplomacy, and conviction aligning at a moment of global transformation. And as tensions simmer across the South China Sea and the Taiwan Strait, one truth becomes clear. Sometimes, the smallest nations sit on the largest crossroads of history. If you liked the video, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe our channel for deep analysis of contemporary issues.